This computer. All right, so welcome to our second meeting of our Introduction to Networks class. I just posted into the chat, and I'd like for everyone to go ahead and go to the chat and click on this site right here, which is this O'Reilly.com. This is our database that I'm giving you access to, and this link will give you access to it. So when you click on it, what's going to happen is, in fact, I'm going to have to use, I use an incognito window because I got a little bit of weird things going on with mine, but basically you go in here, put in this link, and when you do, it's going to say, choose your institution. Well, our institution is not listed, so you just go up here to not listed, click here, and then you put in your academic email. So for you, it's going to be your Stanley email address. So it needs to be your, for me, I'm using the KCAUDL 5282 at stanley.edu. Yours is going to be your student ID at scc.stanley.edu. Okay, so everybody, since everybody's here, go ahead and click on that link and then choose not listed and put in your Stanley email address. And what you should end up in is inside of the O'Reilly database of just unbelievable resources, quite honestly. And what I've done, once you get here, once you're inside of O'Reilly, in your profile, it should say, have your Stanley email address here. All right, but the best thing you can do is go over to Explore and go to Shared Playlist. I have shared a playlist called SCC CCNA Materials. Now, this is not all the CCNA materials inside of O'Reilly, but I've shared this. And inside of here, you'll see there's both official certification guides by Wendell Odom. So this is the full ebook that you can use. So this is volume 1 and volume 2. So it covers everything in the current CCNA. I've also put in here the portable command reference for 5th edition. So if you want to look a command up, you've got that. The entire CCNA course, video course by Kevin Wallace, if you would like to do that. A book of CCNA writing and switching practice tests and the exam cram for the exam. So again, the way you get here is you go to Explore, Share Playlist, and you'll look for the SCC CCNA materials playlist. Now, you also, if you want to look for more materials than what's under our playlist here, you can just go up and search for, say, CCNA, and you will see that there are tons of materials out here. I just went out here and added these to our playlist. So you can make your own playlist and copy mine and then put yours in it. But these are all materials that are free for you to use, okay? So pretty amazing database that we've been able to provide to our students. Anybody logged in? Anybody in class are in here now so you can see this?
I am. How long do we have access to this?
As long as you've got a Stanley email address and that email address is active as a student account, you will have access to it. So technically, I believe your email addresses last a year from the time your course ends. That's my understanding. I'm not absolutely sure on that. It may be once your class ends and you're no longer in the database that it would end, but I think as long as you've got a Stanley email address that's active, you're supposed to be able to get into it.
Okay.
I missed how you got to it to start with. So.
Okay, all right, so here, go to the chat window and I put the link here. There's also another way you can get to it. I'll show you real quickly. If you go actually to stanley.edu.
All right.
And sorry, I'm typing one-handed, folks. I'm the one-handed typing bandit right now. It's hard for me to. Okay, so if you go to stanley.edu. Come on now, let's go. I was putting in colon. You're at stanley.edu and you go to current students and go down to library.
Current students, okay.
Resources, database list.
Resources.
Click on the database list. and then go to the O for O'Reilly, then click on this O'Reilly link, and it's going to pop up and ask you, it says select your institution. We're not listed, so you go up to not listed and then put in your Stanley email address and you will have access.
I came up with just a free trial or something.
What, with your Stanley email address, it came up with free trial. It should, with your Stanley email address, it should give you full access.
I mean, I hadn't, but then it didn't show anywhere to put in an email. It just says what country and how did you hear about it.
Make sure you go to this link. Try this link right here in chat if that didn't work. The other thing that I've found is if you've done a free trial in the past, you may have to open this up in an incognito window because there's like a stored cache or cookie in here somewhere that's, you may want to try that. By the way, there's an entire section on here's IPv6 addressing. I mean, there's just, I'm again amazed by this. I used to pay $50 a month to have access to this personally. The school is paying a good amount of money, but it's not as much as what I would think it would be for everybody to have access. So it's pretty neat. If you, by the way,
use any book that's listed here?
yeah, I mean, you're
Okay.
I mean, you're able to go in. Like I said, I created a playlist for us for CCNA materials. And if you find stuff you think is really good and we should add it, let me know and I'll add it to it. But this way you don't have to buy these books. You also, like I said, if you're studying something else, let's say you're looking up AWS, here and there's all kind of books on AWS. You know, if you're doing, we teach a lot of VMware stuff. So we've actually got a playlist already. It's got some VMware stuff in it, but yeah, all these books, as long as you're in our class and got an active email address, then you are, you're available to use these. So I just like the fact that you don't have to go buy, you know, a book right now. You can use these materials online. Plus we've got both videos and, you know, this exam cram book here is a book that lets you study and prepare once you get through the third class. You know, it's just a series basically of questions, just quizzes and things that you can use to prepare. So I've been using this Python book, Python crash course that I've been really impressed with just as a quick thing to help me with my Python stuff. But overall, again, this is an excellent thing for you to be able to use. I'll actually post this, if it will let me, I'll post this inside of our class as another URL. So go here. So under modules. So that gets you access to Safari Online, which is one of the things I wanted to do today. The other thing I want to do is, I want to talk a little bit about Packet Tracer because there's some confusion on Packet Tracer. Ooh, let me change this to open in a new tab. Open a new tab. So I did put the link in here too, so you can click here and open it in a new tab and it should pop open and ask you to log in. So right there, so that's available for you. But Packet Tracer, one of the things we've got in our class is Packet Tracer is used for two different types of activities. Some of them are like the first activity you did, and in this case, it was activity or Packet Tracer. Oh, where did it go? My other Packet Tracer. I'll go get it. My first Packet Tracer is what I call a look and see Packet Tracer. So when we're inside of here and we are looking at the very first Packet Tracer of this network representation, when I go down here and open it, it was confusing because in the assignment, I asked you to upload a screen capture of your check assessments or assessment items. Well, it just so happens this very first one doesn't have any assessment items. This is what I call a look and see Packet Tracer. It allows you to Just go in there and look at what's going on, how Packet Tracer works, the representation of a basic network. But there's really no assessment that you have to do. So if you do check results here, it's going to say nothing's available because there's nothing you've configured. Now, as we move forward, like into module 2, there's going to be other packet tracers where you're going to have to actually do configurations. So let's let this thing do its thing here. So if I do check results, it says the check results is locked. And again, that's because in this particular packet tracer, it's a look and see. You just read through, you do what it's saying. Now it does ask you at one point to add a device. So you can just go down here and click to add a device and grab a PC and bring it on to the network. You can even click on the connections link here, and you can click on the cable and you can connect the fast Ethernet on the PC to, actually I'm gonna hit escape there, to the port on the access switch down here, fast Ethernet 01. So now you've connected PC 0 to this switch, so you've added a new device. So that's really all this packet tracer was about. And there are some other ones, like later on we'll do a packet tracer. We're going to look at MAC address ARP requests and MAC address resolution using ARP. And so there's not going to be anything to really configure. However, there's also packet tracers like this one right here, configure initial switch settings. And there it was sitting right there. I couldn't see it like I did this. But configuring initial switch settings on this particular packet tracer, it tells you, it says, okay, I want you to do some configuration tasks. So in other words, I'll put this over here and it says on the switch itself, enter privilege exec mode, and it's going to tell you the name of the switch, switch 1. So we're going to go into this switch. We're going to go enable, which takes us from user exec mode to privilege exec mode. And we're going to do config T, which again takes us to configuration mode. And I'm going to type host name. Go away, I can't type, folks. Space, capital S1. And I want you to notice something here. I want you to notice if we look at the activity wizard here, okay, so it's telling me to do this. You'll see a completion percentage. If I hit enter here, you're going to see my percentage go to 6%. And that's because as I do each one of these tasks, so I'm going to do line con 0, which is our console line. I'm going to set a password of let me in. Now, it is very important you know that it is case sensitive. All right, so you see how it gave me another 6%, it gave me more percentage. So as I do each one of these tasks, it's showing me that I'm completing the requirements for this packet tracer. Now, if I do check results, you will see there is an assessment items tab, and it will tell me what all I've done successfully and what I have left to do. This is what I want you to take a snip of and upload along with your .pka. And even on the packet tracers that are just looking C packet tracers, I still want you to upload the .pka and the Word document with the answers to the questions that are inside of it. So I apologize for the confusion on that, but you can see the difference now between the different types of packet tracers, ones that actually have you doing work and ones that just have you looking at and using the simulation abilities of packet tracers. Another really cool thing that I want you to know is that since you are now Cisco Academies and you work at Cisco Academies, you can use Packet Tracer in any of your classes, not just your Cisco classes. So if you're teaching a class that you think it would be beneficial to show a basic network, you can open up just Packet Tracer clean or with nothing on it, pull out a 2960 switch, click on your end devices, pull out 2 PCs, connect them with cables. Okay, so this is just connecting each one. If you know anything about spanning tree, the switch is actually running through spanning tree right now on that interface because we don't have port fast on it, so that's why it's in an amber state. But you can even go in and put in IP addresses on each one of these and set a static IP 192.168.10.10. And we'll fill in here. I'm not going to set a default gateway because there's no router here to set a default gateway on. You go to this PC, the desktop, it's an IP address 192.168.10.11, 24-bit mask. And then now I can actually go to a command prompt, do an IP config, see what my IP address is. And then I can ping across. So let's ping the other PC 192.168.10.10. And we'll see we're getting successful pings. We also have the ability, one of the cool things here, folks, is along the top, there's actually the ability to just click right here and do a little packet. You can click here to here, and it will do a ping for you and show you it was successful. You can also even go to a simulation mode and slow things down, or you can go in and say, okay, I want to go from here to here. And you can actually just go through and do it slowly. And you can see it, actually see how it moves across the network. So, and then if you want to, you can even drill down and look at the packet itself. I'm sorry about my phone, folks.
I think it's the automated warning from Stanley about classes being canceled tonight.
Oh, okay.
I just got a text from him.
Okay. But you'll see how you can go in and see inside of the actual packet. So it tells you what's in it. Yeah, that's what it is. Sorry, y'all. Let me move this in the other so we won't hear it. Why are they canceling classes tonight? I guess it's figure it might rain.
I guess it's from the rain. I'm surprised they didn't cancel it earlier then,
Yeah, I mean,
if
it's
that's what it is.
not like it's that bad here.
No.
But here you can see, you know, this was a ping from 192.168.10, or a return ping from 10.10 to 10.11. Tells you the message type, and also you have the ability to go from real time to simulation mode, which is really cool. If you're using this to kind of like show how packets traverse a network. So any questions on Packet Tracer? Cool tool, really cool tool. Somebody put something in chat. Let me see what we got here. Hold on just a second. Can't find my chat window. There it is. Oh, nope. Okay. Thanks, Ken. All right. Well, let me close this up. Now, the other thing, again, I want to make sure we're aware of, and everyone is logged into and completed the initial assignment in Canvas. Everyone is inside of the Netiquette class. So I have turned on your chapter exams or your module exams. Your first module exam is not until at the end of module 3, so it's in a couple weeks, but it is on. I actually set those modules up so you can take them up to 10 times each. They're not really for, I mean, I want you to make a good grade on them, but they're more for you to learn the material than they're for an assessment. So be aware of that. I give you a lot of tries on it. The other thing I want you to realize is many of you have not tested your access to NetLabs yet. So I would like for everybody to do that soon. Your username is your first part of your Stanley email address without the @scc.stanley.edu, and your initial password is Cisco123. So I can go in here and show you our class. Some of you have logged in, some of you have not. This is where you will be doing your hands-on with real gear, okay? So some of you logged in, some of you haven't. But there's your usernames. Remember, first initial, last name plus 4 parts of your student ID, and Cisco123. But inside of NetLabs, this is where we go in and we can do a reservation. So the very first lab would be in module 2. There's a lab on configuring basic switching and device settings. So you click here. Just want to reiterate again, notice it looks like most of the pods are in use, but don't forget to click this little button here to go all the way out, because there are more pods to the right. So don't think just because the first 4 pods are in use that the pods are not available, because they are available all the way out to pod 12. All right. So when you do this, the neat thing is You do upload your Word document with any of the any of the information that's in it that you filled out. But I can actually go in and look at every single thing you type in. Just a word of warning again, make sure when you're doing the labs on NetLabs that you're using, I'm gonna go ahead and get into one of these, that you're using the document from NetLabs. Don't use the document from inside a class. So if you go here in class and you go to labs and you try to use the document for basic switch and end device configuration right here, if you use this one, it may or may not work correctly inside of NetLabs. You have to use the one that is actually inside of the reservation. And you will notice you're using the right one when it says across the top, this lab has been modified for NetLabs Plus. So if I look at content, you'll see it says it's been updated for use on NetLabs Plus. So make sure you use this content because sometimes the interfaces change and sometimes there's a pretty drastic change in some of the things that you have to do in order for it to work. For the most part, everything works the same, but it can cause great confusion if you don't use the content from inside the content tab. All right. And again, this is awesome because it's real gear booting up. It's not simulation. It's the real thing booting. So which is really cool. All right. Any questions on that? Anybody? Feel free.
Where do I go to put to get to NetLabs?
Go to netlabs.stanley.edu.
Oh, okay.
Netlabs.stanley.edu. And I think somebody I sent STANTLY or something. I messed up, but it is netlabs.stanley.edu. Just remember we're two port for the E in Stanley.
Now, do we need to upload? Will there be any questions in the content that we need to upload?
There could be, and if there is, just download this document and convert it to a Word document using Word.
Okay.
You can always download this document right here.
Yeah.
Download it locally, and then as a PDF, and then open it with Word, and you can put in anything that's in there. Some labs don't have anything you have to put in, like this one. Don't think this one has anything, but at the very end it does. It does have you put the status. So you would save this and give the status of each one of these.
Okay.
So, check it. Sign in for NetLabs is your the first part of your Stanley email address minus so don't put in the @scc.stanley.edu, and then your the initial password is Cisco123. So try that, and if that doesn't work, I may have to reset your password. It's possible I could have fat fingered it. And actually, Ken, let me check because you may not even be in the class. We had people adding late and all lowercase, definitely all lowercase. We've had people add all the way up until this week, so we're not adding anymore. And that's why, by the way, I didn't turn exams on until today, is because I had to make sure we got everybody in before I was doing that. So let me check.
I think I'm in there now. I think I got it.
Okay. All right. All right. Sounds good. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit now just about chapter 1. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because it's pretty self-explanatory, but I will say that the big thing that we're getting across to our students here is, number one, as we all know, networking is in everything we do. I mean, absolutely everything. I always have my students count off or list the number of network devices they have in their house. And everybody think about right now how many devices that are in your house networked right this second. You know, I'm on the upper end of 20, 25 or so. You know, when you think about all the Blink cameras I have, I use Blink camera system. I've got multiple PCs, laptops, Xboxes, Switches, phones, you name it. So everything is being networked. One of the big things they try to get across is the concept of end devices such as clients, printers, those types of things. So the basics of a networking host device versus intermediary devices. And those are the devices that we actually send information through. So for in this instance, we've got data leaving an end device going across to the different intermediary devices. In this case, it switches then to a router. And then it can take any route that it wants, really, once it gets out there, or it can, one packet can go one way, one packet can go another. We will get into how that routing decision is made as we move into our next course. A little bit in this course, but more so in the next course when we get into switching, routing, and wireless essentials. But then it's delivered on the other end. I'm very impatient, but really when we think about how the internet works and the fact that it works at all and that we can go, anywhere in the world in a matter of seconds, it's really pretty amazing what's going on. As someone who started their networking life with a 2400 baud dial-up modem, accessing Genie, with nothing but text-based interfaces, in just my lifetime, it's been pretty amazing what's happened. I always tell people that a network needs a couple things. And for me, it's always something to share to begin with. So some reason for it to exist. Back in the old days, it was, laser printers and files that need to be shared. So we were sneaker netting them around with floppy disk back in the day. If anybody's ever, most kids today, I'm getting so old. Caleb's probably never even seen a floppy disk. And I can pick on Caleb because he works with me. But
I've seen a few.
We need to share devices like printers, and instead of putting a laser printer in every executive's office on the corner of each building, they would put one on each floor and share it. So we needed something to share. Then you needed a media or medium in order to send that information through. Now they talk about a media, but I say media or medium because it could just be wireless today, especially. I'm a big fan of wired. If you can wire it because you can get a great deal more speed out of it than you can wireless. But of course, wireless is much more convenient. But you need something to share, a media or medium, and then you need some type of language to be taught, so a protocol. And we'll talk a great deal about TCP/IP as our protocol of choice. But those three things help to make up a network. Now, I really love this, again, toward the end, where they have questions on each section of the curriculum to help reinforce what you've been reading. So do those, it's just nice. Here's common symbols. You've seen these. You've also seen these in Visio if you haven't used Visio or some other network diagram program. These are the main ones we will use inside of Cisco's CCNA program. Okay. So switches, routers, multi-layer switch is what, obviously, again, the one in the middle is here. Firewall appliance. Sometimes you'll see this or something that says NGFW beside it for next generation firewall. Now, here's something I like to stress to people, and that is the difference between the physical topology and the logical topology. We spend a whole lot more time on this in the curriculum, but suffice to say that the topology that is physically created by your cables may not be the logical topology of how the devices are connected to one another in terms of networks. So we have our physical topology, that's how we physically connect. This would be a star wired bus or a star physical topology with S1 being connected there. If you go down and look here, you can see how each one of them is in its own network, its own subnet, actually its own network in this case, but its own network. And so logically, it's divided by the IP address scheme. Physically, it's how the cables are connected, and it's layer 1, layer 2, which isn't, we'll learn about the OSI model, that's the physical layer, and the data link layer. At the logical diagram, that is typically your layer 3 or your networking addressing. For us today, that's our IP addressing, so IPv4. So when I went in that packet tracer earlier and put in the 192.168.10.10 and 192.168.10.11, both using a 24-bit mask, which is 24 ones turned on, which again, we got an entire section on that. So if you don't understand it, it's okay. Just realize we're going to talk about it. But basically I made them, those two hosts be on the same network so that they could ping one another. You do the same thing in this lab here, which is the primary lab in module 2 that we do. Okay, so you're going to put an IP address on PCA and on PCB, and you're going to ping across. All right. Questions so far? I'm not going to spend a lot of time here other than I'm going to go down to this because this is a big item that's really coming around, and that's the converged networks. The fact that we are now running everything over IP. So we've got, you know, our data networks, we've got our video networks, we've got our voice networks, all of it running over one. This does cause you to make some serious changes to your design of a network, especially when you start running things like voice over IP. The reason being, you think about it, if your phone is connected to your switch and the power goes off and you don't have a UPS on your switch, well, the switch is probably providing power over Ethernet to your phones. It used to be in the old days that the power went out. My internet connection's unstable, so let me hold just a second. Let's see if we come back. Okay. If the power went out, the PCs in the building would be down. So nobody cared if the switch stayed up or not. Especially access layer switches. However, the second you put a phone on an access layer switch and you let that switch provide power to the phone, if the power goes out, people expect to be able to pick a telephone up and get a dial tone. You gotta have that 0.5 volts DC or 5 volt DC, not 0.5, but 5 volt DC to be able to have the phone line there. If that's not being provided by your switch, then you've got a problem. So we had to redesign our networks. We also have to do things like quality of service to ensure that the voice over IP gets better service than just regular data. Someone surfing the net should not have the same quality of service as someone who's trying to use a phone. That gets into our fault tolerance in our networks, designing fault tolerance so that we have redundant links. Now you can build the world's most fault tolerant network, but the problem is you won't be able to afford it. Redundant links cost money. Redundant links to internet providers cost money. The thing I always tell people to be careful of is, especially in this scenario right here, is notice we've got two routers connected to the internet, but make sure that, you know, this may be left side, let's say it's AT&T, right side is Verizon, Sprint, whoever. Make sure that these two providers don't connect to another provider up here and they're both dependent upon it. Otherwise, you just wasted your money to get a dual home setup. Make sure your upstream connections go through different providers. But the second you start putting in these redundant links, you're paying more for cable, you're paying more for interfaces, and you're increasing the complexity of your network. Having said that, you do need those redundant links for fault tolerance as much as possible. But sometimes you look at, the ability to do fault tolerance and you say, well, I can't put the money in to make it make it viable. It's just not worth the money for this level of fault tolerance. Quality of service, I mentioned that earlier, making sure that the traffic that needs high quality of service will get it. We got to tag that traffic and maintain the tags across our infrastructure. I'm not going to talk much about security. We all know that security is a very big deal. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability are the CIA triad, huge, huge items. Our upcoming trends, some of the biggest ones I say, folks, are people using their phones as their computer is one. Our entire COVID-19 exodus to the web, to the remote learning, remote access, that was something that was just thrust upon us and has really been a big thing. So this online collaboration. Now we were using Zoom and this kind of stuff for our Cisco ITC classes, but now we use it for everything. So you're probably like me and getting some Zoom fatigue. In fact, I had somebody ask me the other day if I would participate in a Zoom conference or if I would be interested in participating in a Zoom conference and being a speaker. I was originally supposed to be a speaker in person, and I just said, no, I'm not interested. So I think there's going to be some backlash against it. But at the same time, it is the fact that we've been able to very quickly transition has been pretty amazing. I will say that I think our internet speeds throughout North Carolina and throughout the Southeast and the United States are barely able to handle what we're trying to do. I also think that there needs to be true high-speed internet. I'm talking 100 megabits minimum per person. It's something almost is going to be as ubiquitous as power in order for us to be able to move forward. Cloud computing, public clouds, private clouds, AWS, Google services, all the different things you can do. And then in the home, everything's connected. I mean, I can turn on I can talk to Google over there and tell them to turn on all the lights in my house, turn the lights off. I can remotely change my thermostats. Thermostat attempts to learn when I'm here and when I'm not. So all those IoT devices are pretty amazing as to what is available. Now for you, here's the big thing. We've got 3 classes. At the end of this class, by the way, once you finish and you're accredited, you will be able to teach this class at a Cisco Networking Academy, all right? At the end of all 3 courses, if you take all 3 of them with us, you will get a voucher that will give you a discount on the CCNA, the 200-301 test, and you will be able to go and take your 200-301 CCNA exam. I strongly recommend taking it. I took it a couple months ago. If you're going to be teaching this, and I always tell people, get your certification. It also opens doors for you and allows you to move forward in a lot of different ways. So, any questions on chapter 1 or module 1? I call them chapters, folks. I apologize, but they're modules. Any questions?
No?
Okay, we're gonna.
I actually kind of have one question. I took the CCNA curriculum about 2 years ago, and it's changed. There was 4 back then. What's some stuff that's changed in the overall curriculum?
Okay, the biggest change, honestly, is it's become much easier. They removed a lot of things. For instance, we don't really even do EIGRP configuration anymore. We do single area OSPF. We don't really do any multi-area OSPF. Between you, me, and the wall and everybody in here, they've dumbed it down a little bit. I think it's more of an introductory certification than it was. They did bring in some programmability and looking at, RESTful APIs and Python and doing programmability with devices. So some of that is in the CCNA. There's still, as far as things are still the same, a big stress for this particular class especially is subnetting IPv4 and IPv6. There's probably more IPv6 now and IPv6 configuration than you saw in what you took 2 years ago. However, I will say pretty much if you did the IPv6 sections in the old curriculum, you could get through what's in this too. So in some ways they've simplified it. They've added some wireless to this, and they've added some programmability.
Okay.
So I think you'll find it very easy, quite honestly. If you've been working with Cisco gear at all, especially. There's also still a big stress on true hands-on use of the device. So, which is what I love about the fact that we move immediately in module 2 into how to actually use a Cisco device. So we're going to look here, folks. We got about 18 minutes. We're going to look at how to navigate the iOS, what the iOS is, basic command structures, and so on and so forth. So what is the iOS? And this is the capital iOS, not the little iOS. It's just the operating system that goes on Cisco devices. It is designed to run on their hardware. It is a Linux type distribution, Linux/Unix type distribution. So if you're familiar with Linux commands, most of them will work on the iOS. There are some GUI components that you can use, but we're going to primarily from the command line. Okay. Now, when we go to connect to a Cisco device, this is the one place that I fail you in terms of this online course is I can't physically have you connecting cables into a console port. However, on the back of every Cisco device, there's a console port. It's an RJ45 port, and it's actually on some devices, a mini USB. When you go to connect to that console port, you're doing what is called out-of-band management. And we'll show you in a second how to use a terminal emulation program to connect with it. But this you don't have to do inside of NetLabs, because in NetLabs, we've set up what's called reverse telnet. So when I click on the device, it automatically connects me to it via the console. But this is actually connecting to the console of the device. It's just using a special system to do it. So we're just reverse telnetting in, but this is actually the console connection to this switch. We also can do what's called secure shell or in-band management. So we've got out of band, which is not over the network, which is console. We've got in-band, which is over the network. Now you can do it with Telnet, but Telnet sends everything in clear text, so we do not recommend that. Secure shell that you're going to learn how to configure will allow you to actually connect using a secure connection using public-private key pairs to connect to the Cisco switch or router. Now, the terminal emulation program that we use a lot is PuTTY. So you can go into PuTTY, and inside of PuTTY, you've got the ability to connect via serial connection. Now, what we do when we go to connect to a Cisco device with serial connection is we pick our COM port, and that will depend upon your PC. COM1 is if you've got an actual physical COM port, that will be used. If you're using a USB to serial, it may be on a different COM port than COM1. But our settings that we use to connect to every Cisco device is a speed of 9600, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, no parity, and flow control needs to be set to none, especially if you're using a USB to serial converter. If you don't turn flow control off, you can get some weird things happening with some USB to serial converters. But these are our settings: 9600, 8N1. Okay, so no parity, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, flow control off. If I had a console cable connected to this PC to a Cisco device, I could click open, and it would literally open up this. It would open up the console connection on the Cisco device. Down here, we'll show you actual picture later of doing that, and they've got it inside of Packet Tracer. The cool thing about Packet Tracer, it's a little hokey, but you can actually, inside a Packet Tracer, they've got it set up to simulate a console connection. And so I can pull a switch out here. So let's take a 2960 switch. I can take my PC, pull it out here. I can go to my connections, and there's actually a console connection. So I can click here. I can connect to the RS-232 or the serial port, and then I go up to the switch and connect to the switch's console port. So if a Packet Tracer asks you to connect to the console port on a switch or a device, that's how you do it. So again, you'd go in here, get rid of this console cable. By the way, it's also how you delete items. So you click on the delete item, and you can delete things that you put in. So I'll go back, put my switch back in here. Get my switch. Oops, there we go. I go to my connections, console. So I go RS-232, go to the switch, console, and then on the PC, they've got this terminal emulation program here. So 9600 8N1, no flow control, click OK. You'll see it looks like I'm connected to the console port on the switch. Okay. So you may want to look up a video of connecting to the console port just so you understand that, or if you have real gear at your office, just work and try that, because a lot of times in the classroom especially, people have problems with the COM ports with USB to serial connectors, so be aware of that. All right, now inside of the Cisco OS, we have two primary modes. One is called user exec mode, and that is what I call the look and see. So it's basically just a view only or read only mode. So I go in here and I'm sitting at what the alligator mouth prompt, that's what I call it. I am now sitting at user exec mode. If I put in a question mark, which is for the help commands, you will notice there's 1, and just a little bit more pages of commands. So there's just barely any commands here. So we see set, and so set down through show where. So there wasn't even 2 full pages of commands. If I type enable, this will take me to what's called privilege exec mode, or this is basically God mode or full access mode. If I put a question mark in now, you'll notice that I'm going to see 1, 2, 3, into the 4th page of commands. So there's so many more commands because if I type exit, I'm back inside what's called user exec mode or read only. And there's still commands I can do here, but they're just not as many compared to my privilege exec mode, which is where I can actually do my configuration. So user exec mode, read only, or view only. Privilege exec, full control lets you do anything that you need to do. You're also going to have configuration mode and sub-configuration mode. So if I'm sitting in here and I want to go into, I want to set the name on this switch. I go first into privilege exec mode with enable. You'll notice also that we don't have any passwords set right now. So you can move between these modes freely. We're going to learn in this chapter about setting passwords that will control access to the console line and control access to your privilege exec. If I type config T, all right, you'll see now I'm in what you see the configuration mode, switch config. So this is a configuration or global, this is called global configuration mode. I then can go into line console. And by the way, you can tab out commands. So as soon as they're no longer ambiguous, they will tab out line console 0. And you'll see now that I'm in config line. So I've got a line configuration mode. And I can enter commands here. And by the way, if I do a question mark here, the help menu will show me the items that are applied to this mode. So you'll see now access class, auto command. So there's all kinds of things that apply just to the console line, not to anywhere else. Now, if I want to back up one level, I can just type exit, and that will take me up back to privilege to just global configuration mode. I also can hit Control Z, and that will drop me completely out of configuration mode. So hit the up arrow, and I'm back in global config. So you're going to learn in this class how to move around inside of the different modes. Okay, so from global config to line config, there's all different types of modes, folks, by the way. So if I put in router, OSPF 1, you'll see now we're in, oh, sorry, this is in a switch. If I did that on a router, it would do go into config dash router. Let's do interface FA0/1. You'll see config dash if. So now you see I'm in interface configuration mode for the fast Ethernet 0/1 interface. Some other cool things in here, folks. If you know a command, by the way, begins with S, but you don't remember what the command is, you can always put S question mark, and it will tell you all the commands at that particular level that begin with an S. All right. So same thing, anything you put in here. Also, again, once you get it where it's no longer ambiguous, so I put CL, I can then tab out the command. You'll see this won't work because clear and clock are the same. But if I put an E here, I can now tab the command out. So you'll learn to tab commands, especially when there are long things. For instance, I'll give you a great one. I go to line console 0. Oh, let me go into global config first. So if I do config T, which is config terminal, which is from the terminal we're at right here. I do line con 0. Now there's a command called login synchronous. And if I had to type all that in, I'd go crazy, but I can just type that and hit tab. And that's the command you really want to put on your console line every time you use a Cisco device, because it keeps you from having information that comes to the console from interrupting what you're typing. Okay. There are a great number of videos in this chapter, so I know probably most of you have not read through these or watched these, so that's fine. I'm going to let you do that. I will come back to this chapter next week and talk more about the basic configurations and have us go through some of those. But right now I'm gonna pause and ask if there are any questions. Any questions about the class, about our Safari Online, about NetLabs, about, by the way, canvas.stanley.edu, you pretty much won't use that anymore. You may go there once or twice just to log in for me to quote show attendance, but we're going to be working inside of netacad.com and inside of netlabs.stanley.edu.
Is there a password for the O'Reilly site? Is there a password or just their email address?
Just your email address.
Okay, good enough.
Yep, just your email address.
It'll probably send you an email to create a password though,
Yeah, if it
for use later.
yeah, just fill that out if it does send you an email. Nothing there. Okay. What just happened to my screen? Y'all seen a red line on my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Don't know what happened there. Okay. Oh well. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, folks. And I'm also going to stop the recording so then you can ask any questions you might have.